Welcome to Penn State Behrend's Rise and Shine webinar entitled The Lions Pantry, Alleviating Food Insecurity on Campus. As I mentioned, I'm Dave Johnson, Associate Director of Development and Alumni Relations with Penn State Behrend. I'd like to welcome Chris Fox today. He's the Assistant Director of Civic Engagement and the Smith Chapel at Penn State Behrend. Chris oversees the civic and community engagement programs, first-year outreach for student affairs, the Smith Chapel, and the Lions Pantry. Chris also manages Behrend's alternative spring break program, a week-long service experience for students in different communities across the continental U.S. and territories. In 2019, Chris was awarded Behrend's Ben Lane Service Award, and in 2020, he received Behrend's Best Award in recognition for civility, respect, and kindness. Please welcome Chris. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Just really happy to be here. And as Dave said, my role here at Behrend has been primarily to engage students in service opportunities, especially in our communities locally, but also beyond. Recently, in the last few years, we've gone into the territory of care and advocacy as needs for students has increased in different ways, and it's changed our jobs a little bit, and we're excited to talk a little bit more about that this morning. I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll get ready to start the presentation. But yeah, just happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Okay, so as I said, my name's Chris Fox. I've been at Behrend for, this is my second stint, but I've been in this position for almost 6 years now. And as I mentioned, about 3 years ago, our jobs really changed when we brought on board the Lions Pantry. It's taken a little while to establish, but we're in our third full year and doing really well, and just really excited to share that story with you. We built this presentation about telling that story. So we will get into a little bit about just the background of what food insecurity is and why it may be happening nationally, but also at Behrend. And then we'll just tell our story so you get a really good idea of what's happening here on campus, how the students have been using it, and also just answer any questions you might have following the presentation. What I'd like to do is really just share a video that we created. It gives you just a general overview of the pantry. It's a really good introduction, and just let me share that right now. It's only 1 minute.
The Penn State Behrend Lions Pantry is a free resource to Penn State Behrend students where they can access supplemental nutrition, hygiene, including period products, anytime they're a student here on campus. We recognize that students at Penn State Behrend and students across the country often suffer from food insecurity, which could be not having enough money to purchase the items that they need, accessing unsafe foods because they're not confident they can find safe and nutritious items, or stretching what they have to last a full week. It's a totally contactless pickup system where they use our order form to check the options that they would like to receive in their order for that week. We fill it here in the Lions Pantry and we put it downstairs in the lower level of the Smith Chapel for them to pick up. It's totally anonymous. So if you're moved to help support our Lions Pantry, you can do that very easily through our website. We have a Support the Lions Pantry tab. You can donate monetarily through our Penn State Gives, or you can donate donations, and all the items that we need are listed right there on our website.
Okay, so as you can see by the video, we are housed, our pantry is housed here in the Smith Chapel on campus. We have a small operation, I guess, and compared to some others, but we are operating under, myself as a full-time staff. We have a part-time staff that also works, and then we utilize our student workers to fill orders. And so it's a small operation, but we've really learned a lot, and we continue to learn a lot as we go along. a little bit of background just on food insecurity in general. Some people aren't as familiar with that term or what exactly it means. So food insecurity in a nutshell is more of an economic and social condition versus hunger. And this is a really important distinction. Hunger is actually an individual physiological condition that can result from food insecurity. And hunger is what we want to avoid. Our main goal in having a pantry on campus is to support the students in their ability to be successful as students. So they're reaching a stage where they're hungry, not getting adequate or nutritious food, that could really, really put just a damper on their ability to succeed in the classroom. So we want to take out any of those barriers that might be there for them and try to provide, food that could to get them over that hump and allow them to be successful. So a good distinction to make when we're looking at food insecurity. And then more on food insecurity, if you look at it, on the one end, there's food security with high food security, and then on the low end, it's very low food security. And the distinctions are there. High food security would obviously mean that there's no reported indications of disruptions with access to food or eating healthy food, where at the lower end, you'll have multiple indications of disrupted eating. And that could be based on economics. It could be based, again, on access. So there's a range. And if you look at it, if you're maybe more of a visual person, some of the indicators that are out there in terms of finding out if someone is food secure versus very low food security can be things like cannot afford a balanced meal, ate less than they felt they should. And the very worst thing is, did not eat at all in a day or even months. So you can see by the chart there that, someone who's on the very low end of that scale facing some pretty significant challenges, and just in terms of getting their basic need of food. So that's significant in understanding some of the decisions that students have to make when it comes to food security. They're, worried about going to class and affording their education, but they also have to answer these questions about get access to food. It really can be disruptive. The issue of food insecurity on campuses is relatively new phenomenon in terms of being more of a well-known issue. Really in the only last 10 years have we been able to get data and really try to get a really better understanding of what exactly is going on with food insecurity on college campuses. And I just took snips of, these are major news sources. And this really kind of came into light around 2017, 2018, right around the time we here at Behrend were discussing the issue of food insecurity on our campus. There were some studies done, and most of them were regional, but the numbers look pretty bad. Like it was up to like 30% on most of those studies. And so if we applied that to our campus and what we were thinking, that's a significant number of students, upwards to about 1,200 students if you apply that percentage to Behrend. So we knew it would be an issue on campus. We could presume based on some of the studies that we are not exempt from the issue. That's really where our story began. Myself and the sustainability coordinator at the time really wanted to look at this issue and see what we could do. On some of those studies, and these are some of the questions we get asked a lot. I will just preface this by saying, in no means are we ourselves experts on this issue. We have not conducted any of our own studies. We are still looking to get information and still trying to find, out why is this happening and to what extent. So some of the information we've been able to glean, is that, like I said, it's been an issue for a while. It's pervasive, it's widespread. It's not unique to Behrend or Penn State. It's nationwide. And with these studies, like I mentioned, there's ranges of percentage of students that are food insecure on campuses, but they can range from as low as 9 to up to 50. So, but most of the studies are right around that 30 to 40%. Some of these studies, and one of the largest studies that was done is the Government Accountability Office, which was done in 2018, right around the time we were planning on opening our pantry. And the government study basically took all these other studies and compiled them so they weren't as regionalized to get a better idea. And what they found, as well as some of the other studies, is that campus meal plans, financial aid, government assistance such as SNAP, just haven't been as effective in eliminating food insecurity. And so that's something that is still an issue today and something we need to continue to take a look at. And as far as how this came to be with students and how it's become such a pervasive problem, can really be tied to maybe some of the changes in higher ed as well. Higher tuition rates, social changes with more students of non-traditional status coming into higher education. We see some of that here at Behrend. And so, they're different. Maybe they're working as well as going to school. They have other needs as well, and it's expensive. But there could be a lot of different factors, and the way we approach this is really individual student by individual student. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own story, and it is complex. And we don't want to assume, one student has the same issue as another student. I will say, based on our experience, we either have students who have just a temporary hardship, and then we have students who, it's more chronic, where they're going to need stuff more ongoing. As we came to look at this issue and really wanting to try to do something here at Behrend, we tapped into Lake Effect Leaders, which is the local AmeriCorps Vista project here in Erie in Crawford County. The AmeriCorps Vista program is for mostly recent grads. If you look at it, maybe like a gap year experience, it's an opportunity for students who maybe just graduated to get a year of service. And really their main goal is to help eliminate poverty all around the country. So with that group here in Erie, we were able to secure a Vista project that started in 2017 and 2019. And this was really our effort to try to get something like a food pantry operationalized here on campus. So we were able to do that. We applied and we got our first Vista in 2017. His name was Will Taylor. He graduated from local Allegheny College. His role was really to galvanize the campus, get the word out, try to coalesce resources on campus, and really just set the groundwork, the infrastructure for the food pantry. And then in our second year, Rob Felger, a recent grad of Gannon, came in the summer of 2018, and Rob really helped kind of put the details on the operation. And so where we are now, as our Vista project ended, we have been able to sustain this based on that work. They did a great job. We really missed them, but they did a great job and left us with a really good operation as far as the food pantry, and a process that we're real proud of. Our process, as mentioned in the video, is contactless. And that means that our hub is the website that you see on your screen now. And through the website, students can access an order form, and they have different items they can choose from. And we try to make those as healthy as possible. But we offer food, we offer hygiene products, and we've also got into period products. So we try to cover as much basic need as possible. Our students will place the order. Those come to us as the staff, and we can look at those and we can redact any personal information. We never do actually see names. We only see email addresses. Any student that orders or any person that orders from our food pantry has to be a Penn State student. So they have to provide their student ID number and they have to provide their PSU user ID as well. So when those orders come in, we fill them on Tuesdays and Thursdays so the students can get those the very next day. We're not at the capacity to do like instant orders, anything like that, but this works really well. The other reason for going contactless, not just for efficiency's sake, but also for the stigma around food insecurity. And I think more in general, just, people asking for help. There's students who pride themselves on not asking for help. And there's also students who maybe grew up maybe in low economic situations who are looking for a new start, and they're trying to break the cycle, and they don't want to maybe as well. So that's the stigma that we continue to fight against. We want as many students to feel comfortable to get the going issue, but with a contactless process, students never have to come face to face with us to get their food. We place them in bags downstairs, and like you saw in the video, they'll come in, grab their bag and go. And that's something we've all become more familiar with over the couple of years with takeout, and you can order it way on your phone. You can go into the restaurant, pick it up off a shelf, never have to talk to there, and it's kind of. As I mentioned, we also have gotten into offering more period products for students. This really kind of generated out of our Student Government Association. So it was a student-led initiative. It made sense that the pantry would maybe house more of this because of our capacity and our tie with the food pantry. So we did partner with SGA, and we were able to get a lot of period products, a lot of different variety, some sustainable, for those out to students. And our student workers have actually worked with campus to get into different buildings across campus and make those products available in different restrooms, and just have more access to come just here to the chapel to get the. Doing a lot of work on that front as well. And we're really proud of that. As you dig into our data, and this is something that we're continuing to work on, but as I mentioned, we are still young. We have been around for just a couple years, and we really need to build up our data to get a really clear understanding. But what we have thus far, our first order was placed on February 21st, 2018, so not too long ago. To date, we've had over 1,500 orders, which is a really good number. A lot of our orders come from return users. So as I mentioned, these are students who will frequent the pantry more than one time and come back to us. And then, on a lesser extent, you'll have students who are just first time, maybe just use it once. Tracking the orders over time, we've seen that the peak usage occurs usually in the middle of the semester. So in the fall, you're looking at, around the end of October, and then in the spring between March and April. And good information as well, just to know when we can expect maybe a, but also maybe help tell the story as to what's going on with the students' access to food during the course of a semester. Just to give you a kind of a comparison, this fall we've 110 orders, which would equal our orders a week. And if you go back last year to fall 2020, we were down to 179. Obviously, COVID-19, we were in a remote learning situation, so there weren't as many students here on campus. So we want to make sure we note that. And in fall 2019 is really kind of where we took off. We started in 2018. We had our lowest numbers then, but after getting established, we really took off. We were having a lot of orders in the fall of 2019, and of course, COVID hit. but we can see it's coming back, and the students are again utilizing it in pretty high numbers for us, at least, and it's a good thing. As I mentioned, if we apply those percentages to Behrend, we're looking up to over 1,000 students. But as you can see, based on our numbers, not all those students who are probably food insecure are using it. So we still have work to do to make sure that the students who do need it, aware of it, and they're comfortable using it. Just some more background based on our data that we've collected thus far. Another indicator, just based on race, some of the demographics that we have. You can see there how that's laid out. The reason I wanted to show this is basically to say that these numbers really correlate well with our just demographics in terms of the Behrend student population. Are pretty much in line, which really tells me that food insecurity does not discriminate. It's not a problem for just one specific group of people. It really just can affect anybody. Other notable demographics to just highlight for you. Most all of our users are full-time undergraduate students. Interestingly enough, over half of them are enrolled in a meal plan, and over half of them live on campus, which is surprising. You would think more are off campus. Those who don't necessarily have a meal plan would be more of a user, but not the case with our data. 37% of those users are employed. They do hold jobs based on the data we've got. In terms of finding out about the pantry, this is important to us because we every year have to tell our story. We do a lot to reintroduce ourselves as we get new students. But 40% are finding out via word of mouth. That's the highest percentage among how students have found out about the pantry. And then 20%, which is coming from faculty and staff. And that's the number that's just really, it feels good. It's a really good sign. And we want to get that number up even more so we can work with our faculty and staff to refer students to our care and advocacy team and eventually get trickled to us so we can be of benefit to them as well. So we really rely heavily on our faculty and staff and just our as far as how we're supported, when we first started the food pantry, we mostly took food donations. And what we quickly found is that it's great that people will donate food, and we still accept food donations. Sometimes the food that you get is either expired, or as we could all probably relate to, you're going into your cupboard to grab the things that you haven't used. So you're getting things like pie filling and things that, if we're not really going to eat them at our own homes, then, it's really hard for us to give that out to students. What we found is that if we were able to get monetary donations, we would have or to control the inventory that we do put out. So we have a specific set of inventory items, and we can use money to buy those specific items and just make sure it's consistent. And again, somewhat healthy, not expired food. And that really has made a huge difference. So we really appreciate some of the campaigns we've been a part of and the support we've gotten from development, other offices. The university was part of a huge Tackle Hunger campaign against Ohio State back in 2019. That was really helpful. We received, as well as other campuses, received funds from that. We've been part of our Giving Tuesday program through the university. Again, a lot of support through our development office and helping us with that. We also offer faculty and staff payroll deductions, and some have been able to do that. And that's just really great because it's consistent, and it keeps money coming in and helping us out on a consistent basis. And then there's one-time donations where people can go to our website, they can contact development. I'm sure you'll might get information about that as well, but anyone can give at any time. and that money will go towards, again, replenishing our stock of inventory and making sure we have items available for our students. That we've also done some fun collaborations with different offices on campus. One of those, Operation Lion Pantry, through our athletics office. Brian Streeter, who's our athletic director, is a huge proponent of the food pantry, a great big supporter. He led the effort for the Operation Lions Pantry, which is basically asking every athlete who is coming back for the fall semester to bring one item. And they deliver. 2 years in a row now, they've just delivered. And you can see from the photo there, that's just a snip of one of the Operation Lion Pantry, just the overall food. And then this past December, just last month, we, for the first time, collaborated with our police services unit and did a Cram the Cruiser. They parked one of their cruisers out back of the Reed building on campus. We had live music, we had food, and students at the end of the semester, were donating food all day. We were able to fill one of the cruisers and really helped us out, especially for the start of the spring. We've got a lot of items. We're ready to go. So it's fun. That was great for police services as well. It got them out there, being able to talk to students and build relationships, and always looking for collaboration and support from not just our office, but beyond. So, and then just to give you a good idea of, in terms of the money and where that goes and what it's used for, and what we're last year, about a year ago, or maybe a little bit longer before COVID, we did a tracking over a month's time, and we looked at all the orders in that time and wanted to get an idea of about how much each order, would cost. And over that time, we spent close to $900, for 67 orders, which came out roughly to about $13 per order. So that's helpful in understanding, especially if we're looking to get donations, what we need in terms of being able to fulfill those orders. Now, obviously, we've established our pantry here at Behrend, and we've been running since the spring of 2018. That's when we first launched. But the university since then has really taken off. When we started, we really only had one other campus that we were working with that we knew of, really, that had a fully operational pantry and what we had kind of aspired to, and that was at University Park. They have a brick and mortar type building where students walk in and can fill their bags, and it's not a contactless system, but they were a great benchmark for us, and we were able to talk to them and help get tips on how they run theirs and kind of what works best for their campus, and then use that information to customize our own process. There are probably 15 or more food pantries or versions of pantries on Penn State campuses, including the Dickinson Law School, and other campuses like that as well. So not only is it spread, nationwide, even at Penn State, it's an issue that's really kind of taken off and caught the attention of the people. There was a task force set up by the president, President Behrend, and they're looking at more of just basic needs for students. And they're looking at all the pantries, but also housing. And this task force is an ongoing thing, and we're happy they're doing this, and we're excited to see where this leads. And it's really had an impact. Our strategic plan here at Behrend is now looking more readily at care and advocacy and what that means for us as a college, but also how that impacts our individual jobs and what each of our roles is to make sure our students are supported, and have this basic need. So a really exciting time in terms of being able to provide. It's bittersweet, though, that we have these issues, and obviously we want all our students to be successful. It's good to see the university taking some leadership on it. So as we really look to our next steps, I just wanted to quickly go over so you had an idea of maybe where we're heading next. As I mentioned, we have to outreach, we have to advocate, and we have to get support. It's kind of an ongoing thing year to year. That's something we'll do every year. We have to continue to introduce ourselves to campus, especially the new students. We have to continue to get information as to why this is happening and inform people. And then also just continue to look for ways to get support from the community. For other goals, as I mentioned, care and advocacy has been a growing trend, but at the university level and at college here, we want to be better streamlined with whatever process that's going to look like. So if there's a student that's identified as having hardship and they get referred to the care and advocacy group, we want to make sure the Lions Pantry is tied into that. Another area that we're really looking to get into more is just finding resources to help us analyze the data that we have. And as we get more and more data, we're going to need to have help as our staff here aren't necessarily experts in that area. We want to get a clear picture and we want to know those answers just as much as anyone else. And so it's really important to find out as much information as are and why they're using it in general. And then so, some of our limitations, our pantry is located here at the Smith Chapel. We are definitely limited in terms of space. We are utilizing one of our storage closets as well as the hallway downstairs to place the food out. But, it would be great to have our own building and be able to do a much larger operation with more staffing. At this point, we are somewhat limited. We were able to at one time put out some fresh produce, but because of our refrigeration issue, just trying to maintain a daily fresh inventory of fresh vegetables was really difficult. So that's just one kind of example of, where our limitations lie. If we had a full operation with multiple refrigeration units and could, put all kinds of produce in there, we at this point, we're happy to be where we are and doing the most. And then finally, I wanted to conclude and just give you an idea of, some of the feedback we've got from our users, our students that have used the pantry. As I mentioned, one of the complexities about students using food pantries, they've pointed to non-traditional students have been coming into higher ed more. We had a student, he's a single dad, and he's come back to college later. And he let us know that his daughter really appreciated some of the snacks that we gave when he made an order through the pantry. So, every time he ordered since then, we would, throw in a little bit extra for his daughter. And, I know it's really appreciated. That just goes to show you that there is a lot of appreciation from the users, but we really appreciate the opportunity to be able to support the students. Is what it comes down to. Everything, it's all about their goals and their success here at Behrend. With that, I'll just hand it over. Again, thank you for the opportunity to present today. I hope you have a better understanding of the Lions Pantry here at Behrend, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Chris. That was very informative and, something that perhaps people don't always think about on a college campus is the food insecurities. But we do have several questions, and I thought maybe it start with the one that raises the question about students who are enrolled in the meal plan and why they maybe need to utilize the food pantry, the Lions Pantry.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one thing is cost. In terms of a student, when the and again, I don't work for housing and food, so I don't know the intricacies of the meal plans, but I know they're offered at different levels, and each of those levels go, in price, they go up a little bit, and they offer range of meals per week. So, level one would be the least expensive, but you get least amount of meals per week out of it. And then the third I guess the highest level would be the most expensive, but out of that you'd get, roughly 14 to 16 meals a week. Maybe depending upon the student's financial background, whatever they can afford is what they'll get. And if that's not enough meals per week, they're going to need more to supplement. So one of the great anecdotes that we got was from athletics. Our athletic director, Brian Streeter, he had firsthand information about this because working with his athletes, he said, our athletes, they just eat more. They burn so many calories. They're working out all the time. They're performing on the fields or on the court, and they blow through their meal plans. So by the halfway point of the semester, they don't have any more. And that's one of the reasons he's a huge proponent of this, because he can see some of the difficulties his student athletes have after that halfway point, when they start losing some of that access and maybe affordability to get food. And that goes in line with, some of our data too. As we mentioned, our numbers kind of peak at the middle. And that's where maybe the most need is, right at that middle part of the semester when, students are kind of running out of those meal plans. Now, that's not to say, the students could be maybe more aware of those plans that they're buying, able to manage those plans throughout the semester. Of course, that's probably part of it as well. But what we do know, and again, we can rely on some of the studies that have been done nationally, is, the meal plans offered just aren't enough at this point for a lot of students. And so that's one thing we do look at. And here at Behrend, there has been, students have raised concerns over the pricing of some of the dining options on campus, and that conversation, that dialogue between our housing and food and our students is ongoing. Our housing and food office has made it clear that, there's a set price that's set at University Park. So housing and food is centralized in that way. So whatever it costs at University Park is what it's going to cost here at Behrend as well. So I don't know, maybe geographical demographics in terms of the students we have and the, maybe the financial income backgrounds that they come from. It can be difficult.
Yeah.
We're continuing to learn.
If you have kids at home that play sports, you absolutely know about that appetite thing.
Can't keep up. You just can't
keep up. It's sort of related to this, but on a flip-flop, if you will. And it's from an anonymous person. It says some institutions allow students to donate meals from their meal plans to students in need. Does Behrend have we ever considered that type of program?
We have considered it. We've asked on multiple occasions if, say at the end of the semester, if students could turn those meal plans into, monetary donations. And the response we got, and maybe there's ways around it, but from what we were told is no at this point, because that money is already paid up front. So the meal plans are paid in advance. So they don't really actually have the money to donate. They've already paid. So it'd be really on the university to oversee that process of taking the money the students have paid and kind of, it would be more like a refund. They would have to refund some of that money back to the student or to the Lions Pantry. And I don't know if it's a capacity issue with the university not having the ability to do that at this point, but it's certainly something we have thought about for sure. One thing caught my eye recently. There was a swipe out hunger campaign at University Park where they were able to swipe, I don't know if it was meal plans or Lions Cash or what, but they were able to do something where they were able to donate through swiping their Lions or their card into the system. So that's something we want to follow up on and find out what exactly they did there and how they did it. And is it something we could utilize here at some extent? So it's a really great question. Definitely something we're aware of.
Yeah, it seems like, there's a good bit of need and fewer resources each and every day. So
I will say this though, that while they weren't able to give money from their plans, they were able to use some of their Lions cash. The Cram the Cruiser event last month, we parked right outside the Galley, which is a housing and food kind of convenience store on campus. And they saw the truck, they saw we were donating items, and so many students just went right into that convenience store. They swiped, they emptied out the Galley for us. They bought as much as they could. They'd come out and they would donate the food to us directly. So that's maybe a roundabout way to get some of that. It worked out well, so we'll continue to do that.
Another question that came up that's related to some of the things that you talked about, not having the resources to really do a lot of analytics as far as the program. But the question is as far as Behrend analyzing any of the contributing factors that food insecurity has among college students. For example, are there strong predictors related to food insecurity among first-gen students, race, gender, et cetera? Do you know any of those stats, or is that something that you aren't able to really collect at this point?
Not at this point. One of the things I'm excited about for this task force that's coming to fruition at the university level is that, through that, there will be hopefully more resources to do studies like that, to find out what's going on at each of our respective campuses, because we are all different. We all are geographically different in terms of where our campuses are, and that has an impact on the type of students we get, where they're from. We're much looking forward to that. We're in a waiting game as far as what's going to happen with that. But in the meantime, we can try to dig into our own data at this point. Like I said, we don't have a lot, but we do know we have more non-traditional students than we've ever had. And that could be a definitely some sort of factor or variable. But there's lots of variables. And like I said, there's a great anecdote that we had. We had a student who, worked full-time, went to school full-time, not work full-time, worked part-time, but went to school full-time. His transmission went out in his car. And, he had to pay to get his car because he needed his car to go to work and to go to school. But in paying for that transmission, he had to not buy groceries that week. So luckily he was able to find us and connect with us at that point and just get him over that incident. That's one of those kind of very hardships that we come across with students, and they will get referred into our system and hopefully eventually find us. But that goes to show you that it's different for everybody, and there are so many variables at stake here. But we do want to find out. We are curious, as everyone else is, what exactly is going on with our students in particular. So we'll continue to look at that.
Yeah, I had kind of a question not related to food necessarily, and I know we have some resources on campus for clothing. Is clothing an issue that needs to be addressed by the Lion Pantry itself, or are there other resources on campus that address the issue of clothing for students?
We've been approached multiple times about having a clothes pantry. We don't have the space, to just be completely frank about it. But I know there is some need. It's not always economic as well, because we have students that come from all over the world, and not all of them are prepared to face the weather we get in Erie, I should say. And so sometimes we will get, calls from faculty who are like, hey, I have a student, he doesn't have any boots or doesn't have a coat, doesn't have any money really to buy anything. Can you help him out? And unfortunately, we don't really have an inventory of used or donated clothing or anywhere to put them at this point, but it is a conversation that has been had, and one of those things that we will continue to look at as, again, this becomes more of a prevalent issue in terms of care and advocacy.
Well, this has really been informative, Chris. I know even for us, when we're here on campus, sometimes we don't have all the knowledge of what goes on. So we really thank you for taking the time out of your day to inform us on this very critical and important issue to the success of our students here at Penn State Behrend. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well,